There's a moment in every woman's life when she gets tired, not just physically tired, but emotionally exhausted from constantly trying to prove her worth to people who never deserved her in the first place. She's the woman who gave too many second chances, the one who believed in potential more than reality, the one who stayed longer than she should have because her heart was louder than her logic. And yet, even with all the effort she poured in, it never felt like enough. That's where her power begins. You don't truly become a high-value woman by being liked, needed, or chosen. You become high value the moment you stop needing to be. You stop waiting for a message, a change, a sign, or someone to finally see your worth. The minute you decide that your energy is not for sale and your time is sacred, the game changes. You don't chase, you attract, not because you're playing hard to get, but because your peace is finally louder than your desperation. When you're constantly trying to fix, save, or win someone over, you lose parts of yourself in the process, and you don't even notice it at first. You convince yourself that if you just love them harder, they'll wake up and realize what they have. But that's not how real love works. Real love doesn't need convincing. It doesn't need chasing. It recognizes you and stays. The truth is, most women were never taught how to receive. They were taught to earn, to overfunction, to prove. But the most powerful shift you can make is to learn how to receive without guilt, demand respect without aggression, and walk away without drama. That's what emotional confidence looks like. It's when you no longer fear being alone because you finally enjoy your own company more than someone else's breadcrumbs. Think about how many times you've dimmed your light to make someone else feel comfortable. How many times you've softened your truth just to keep the peace. How many times you've silenced your needs in fear of being too much. That's not love. That's survival. And you were never meant to just survive. You were meant to thrive. The minute you stop explaining yourself, you start evolving. The minute you stop seeking closure, you start choosing peace. Closure is often just a delayed form of validation. And peace comes when you no longer need an apology to let go. You don't need their understanding to move forward. You need your own permission. There's a version of you that exists on the other side of people pleasing, on the other side of anxious waiting, on the other side of overgiving. She's calm, centered, unbothered, and she's not hard to find. She's underneath every moment you said yes when you meant no. She's underneath every time you begged for clarity when you already had the answer. She's underneath every heartbreak you thought you couldn't survive, but did. That version of you is waiting for you to remember who you are. She's the woman who knows that love is not pain, that effort is mutual. That energy is felt, that actions speak, and that silence is also an answer. She doesn't beg for attention, she commands respect. She doesn't fight for a spot in someone's life. She walks away when she's not valued. Not out of ego, but out of self-worth. Sometimes the most romantic thing you can do for yourself is walk away from anything that makes you feel small, and that includes your own patterns, the way you overthink, the way you assume, the way you keep choosing people based on how much you can help them instead of how much they actually support you. It's not just about letting go of the wrong people. It's about letting go of the old version of you that tolerated it. It's scary at first to be alone, to sit in your own silence, to face your own patterns, but it's also beautiful, because in that silence you'll hear your intuition again. In that space you'll rebuild your self-trust. And with every boundary you hold, you'll get closer to the version of you who doesn't settle. Let this be the moment you stop confusing attention for affection. Let this be the moment you realize that someone who truly wants you won't make you question how they feel. You'll stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "Why did I keep making excuses for someone who never showed up for me?" You don't need to become colder to protect yourself. You need to become clearer. Clear on what you want. Clear on what you won't tolerate. Clear on how you want to feel. When clarity replaces fear, Your standards become non-negotiable, not because you're rigid, but because you finally believe you're worthy of consistency, presence, and effort. And when you finally believe that, fully, deeply, emotionally, you start walking differently, you stop explaining your boundaries, you stop apologizing for needing more, you stop staying silent just to keep someone in your life. You stop watering dead plants and start nurturing your own growth. There will be people who don't like the new you, people who were comfortable with the version of you who accepted less. That's okay. Let them go, because the people who truly see you will celebrate your evolution, not guilt you for it. Being a hive, you woman, isn't about being perfect. It's about being emotionally honest. It's about knowing when to stay, when to speak, and when to walk away. It's about protecting your energy like it's gold, because it is. You've spent too much time explaining your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. You've spent too much time trying to make relationships work that were never meant to hold the weight of your soul. And now it's time to reclaim your light, time to reintroduce yourself to yourself. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you believe you're worthy of. So if you're attracting inconsistent, low-effort love, it's not because you're not enough. It's because you haven't yet fully owned how worthy you are of more. Start today. Start by no longer calling it love when it costs you your peace. Start by walking away from conversations that leave you doubting yourself. Start by speaking to yourself the way you wish they would have. You become magnetic not by being needed, but by being at peace. When you stop giving energy to what drains you, you create space for what fuels you. When you stop explaining your worth, you create space for someone who already sees it. And when you stop running after people, you find yourself. You realize the most important relationship you'll ever have is with the person you become when you're no longer trying to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. The real glow-up is not in your looks, your money, or even your social circle. It's in how peaceful you become with yourself, how deeply you trust your own intuition, how confidently you walk away from anything that no longer aligns with the woman you're becoming. It's in the smile you wear when you realize you no longer need someone to validate the value you already know you carry. You stop settling the moment you realize that your life is your responsibility. Your joy is your job. Your standards are your boundaries. No one owes you loyalty, effort, or love, but you owe it to yourself to no longer give what you're not receiving. You owe it to yourself to stop hoping they'll change and start changing your own patterns. You begin to see things clearly, that ghosting isn't about your worth. It's about their emotional immaturity, that mixed signals aren't love, they're manipulation, that someone being confused about you is already your answer, and that your intuition was right the entire time. You just didn't want it to be. Every time you ignore your gut, you pay the price, maybe not right away, but eventually, and the cost is your peace, your time, and your self-esteem. But the moment you stop betraying yourself for the illusion of connection, you begin to heal, not because you're suddenly stronger, but because you finally stop looking for love where it never lived. Healing isn't just about moving on from the person. It's about moving on from the version of yourself who kept waiting, explaining, overfunctioning. It's about forgiving yourself for not knowing better and now doing better. You don't heal by rushing into the next distraction. You heal by sitting with yourself, by asking, what was I really looking for? Why did I believe I had to earn love? Where did I learn that being chosen meant being worthy? You begin to realize that everything they withheld from you, consistency, effort, words, actions, are things you can now give yourself. And when you start showing up for yourself at that level, the entire dynamic changes. You no longer attract people who test your boundaries because your energy no longer tolerates it. People treat you how you treat yourself. So when you stop abandoning yourself for someone else's potential, you stop inviting in the same lesson in a different body. You begin to attract people who are safe, grounded, intentional, not because they're perfect, but because you no longer settle for the chaos you used to mistake for passion. You don't need someone who fills a void. You need someone who complements your wholeness, and that only happens when you're no longer afraid to be alone. When being alone feels more peaceful than being in a relationship where you feel unseen, unheard, or unloved. And it's in that stillness that you meet your power, the power to say, I'm not available for confusion. I'm not available for emotional unavailability. I'm not available for anything that doesn't feel like clarity, effort, and peace. Not because you're demanding, but because you finally understand your value. You start choosing differently. You no longer respond to the late night I miss you texts. You no longer entertain someone who doesn't make real time for you. You no longer feel flattered by attention. You're moved by action because you've upgraded your standards from what feels exciting to what feels secure. You realize that emotional attraction isn't the same as emotional availability. That chemistry isn't enough, that butterflies are often a trauma response, that true intimacy is built, not begged for, and that safety isn't boring. It's what allows your nervous system to finally relax. There's nothing more attractive than a woman who is at peace, who isn't triggered by silence, who doesn't panic when someone pulls away, who doesn't chase, over-explain, or beg, because she knows her worth, and her worth is not tied to someone else's ability to see it. This version of you is powerful. She's the woman who doesn't need to be liked by everyone because she likes herself. She's the woman who chooses herself even when it hurts. She's the woman who knows that love is a partnership, not a performance. That being chosen is not the goal, being honored is. You don't need to lower your standards to be loved. You need to raise your self-worth so you stop accepting love that feels like a negotiation. You need to realize that love isn't something you earn. It's something you allow from people who are emotionally equipped to give it. Every time you settle, you delay the connection that's truly meant for you. Every time you make excuses for someone's lack of effort, you send the message that this is enough. But when you finally say, I deserve more, and follow through with your actions, the entire universe responds. Suddenly, what used to excite you now feels draining. What used to confuse you now feels unacceptable. What used to feel like love now feels like a lesson, and that's growth, because growth isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the decisions you make in silence. It's the standards you hold when no one's watching. It's the way you talk to yourself after the heartbreak. It's the way you keep showing up for yourself when no one else does. This is your reminder you're not hard to love. You're just not settling anymore. You're not too much. You were just around people who couldn't hold your depth. You're not intimidating. You're just finally in your power. And yes, it may feel lonely at first, but the peace you'll gain is worth every lonely night you spend rebuilding yourself. One day soon, you'll look back and thank yourself for walking away, for setting boundaries, for no longer accepting the bare minimum, for learning how to hold space for your own emotions, for finally choosing yourself in a way you never had before. You'll realize that the love you were searching for wasn't about being saved, fixed, or chosen. It was about remembering who you were before the world convinced you that you weren't enough. It was about becoming whole so that when love finds you, it's not filling a void, it's expanding your joy. You don't find that kind of love by chasing. You find it by becoming the woman who knows that her softness is strength, that her standards are not negotiable, that her presence is a gift, not a burden, that she is the prize, the peace, and the partner someone has been searching for. So don't give up. Don't lower the bar. Don't go back to what broke you. Keep choosing yourself. Keep healing. Keep growing. Because the woman you're becoming will thank you, and the love that's meant for her won't make her question her worth. It will remind her of it every single day.